Hello and welcome to the garden. Well, it's a bit of a miserable day today. The weather has definitely turned. It's wet and moody. However, I've got a nice little job to do undercover, so that is fine. I'm a little bit behind with some pricking out, so I've got these funky fellows here. This is lemongrass. I've never grown that before. These larger ones, I should have probably moved those on a week ago, so that's not good. I've got lots of parsley. Again, I could have moved those on a little bit earlier, but I've been waiting for the celeriac to catch up, and this one is barely ready. I can prick out some of those, but yeah, there's more following, and celeriac is always a little bit reluctant, a little bit slow. That's just how this veg is. It's a fussy and slow growing fella, but I've got enough here now to prick some out, so I'm going to get on with that today. I will start though with the lemongrass, and I'm going to pop these into, I think, small pots individually, one per pot. So I've got these 7cm pots. I use quite a lot of those. They are a handy size. They don't take up too much space in the propagators, and whereas I'm quite happy to leave the parsley and the celeriac on the bench, the lemongrass I think will prefer slightly warmer conditions. I don't have the propagators hot right now, not this time of year. I'm not germinating anything in them. I'm just trying to keep things like peppers and chilies and tomato plants happy enough. So I think I have them set on 15 degrees, and that is fine. I'll give these pots a drop of water. That compost is a little bit dry. It's quite a light mix. You can see it slumps just slightly there. It doesn't matter. And then I want to make some holes there. I don't know what the root systems are like on these. Never grown them before. And I'll find a couple of likely candidates. That one looks rather good. Get down underneath it. I'm only grabbing it by the seed leaves, and then we'll find out what sort of root it's got. Probably more than it ought to have really at this stage. Yeah, it's got quite a bit of root, I think. Wow. Yeah, there's a nice little root system there. I'm going to have to make that hole a little bit bigger. That's fine. That looks like a weed, and I'll gently tuck that in, drop it down. I don't want to drop it too deep, and then I'm going to firm in from the sides, not from the top. Right, that looks fine. Just a drop more water, and the purpose of that is to settle that soil around the roots. Yeah, that should be happy enough in there. And I'm glad I'm using a reasonable sized pot looking at that root system. And as I said, these could have been moved on, and probably should have been moved on a week or two ago. But I don't think it's going to be a problem if I get them out with a decent amount of root on. Well, I've knocked off more of the soil with this one, but there's some nice root there. I want to put them in with a little bit of care. I mean, you can just chuck them in a hole and they'll sort themselves out, but I like to have the roots nicely arranged in there. Upset them as little as possible. It's really important to use something to get under the seedlings so that you don't pull these and break these long roots. I want all of that long root intact, and then very gently tuck it in and make sure it's lying nicely in that hole there. So the parsley and celeriac I'm going to prick out into these trays. These are a little bit big, but all of my smaller ones are in use. But never mind, I can probably leave them in here until they are ready to be planted out, so that's not a bad thing really. So I don't think these will have quite so much root on. Now sometimes if I start these in cells, I will leave these in little groups of maybe up to 3 plants, and they grow quite happily in a little cluster actually. But here I'm going to prick out individual plants. Now this is the giant Naples variety, so this makes quite a substantial plant. It is a fantastic variety of parsley. Yeah, and you can see I've got more root on there than I ought to have at this stage, so yeah, these should have been moved on a week ago, but yeah, I'm going to be careful not to disturb that too much. And I think these will prick out quite reasonably. Again, I want to just always wash that soil around those roots. There's always a debate about whether you should water from the top or the bottom, but anytime I'm pricking out, I always water from the top. It's one of those times when I think it really helps, because what you don't want is that root system that you've just dropped in the hole. You do not want any of that just hanging around in the air. You want good soil contact there, so that's how I like to do that job. Again, I'm being very careful here. I'm teasing these roots apart. I'm not pulling very little on these. Wow, that's a great big pile of root. But if you go in there and butcher it a bit, you'll lose half of that root, and then the plants will sulk for a while, and that is not what I want. That's a great little root ball. I always like to get a little tool down there and push that soil in up against that root system. I'm sure that helps get it properly in place. So I pricked out a dozen plants here, and that is more than enough. These actually make pretty big plants. So I will have spares here. I'll keep this tray going for another week or so, just to make sure that all of these have settled down okay. If any of these fail, I will prick out a few from here, but I don't expect any of them to fail. it's if you're careful, it's a fairly rare occurrence to lose a seedling that you prick out. I think I've lost one this year, so, and I've pricked out a fair few already, so yeah, I don't expect any of these will fail, but I always like to have some spares around. So I'll give this a drop of water, settle that down again, and I'll keep hold of them for another week or two. So the celeriac, now these are a lot smaller, and I'm going to have to be a little bit careful with these. Undoubtedly I will disturb some of the more recent germinations. I'm not too bothered about that. I don't want too many celeriac plants. So. And there we go. Again, got to be careful to get it out without damaging those long roots. We want all of that intact. There's a surprising amount of root on these seedlings actually. Some plants at this sort of stage have got little more than a one single long root. Once it's germinated, the parsley is a nice easy plant to grow. It's not at all fussy. This stuff though, this stuff really is fussy. So even though these are still quite small, I want to prick them out a little bit sooner because I want to give them every chance to get going. They take a long time to develop. So I had enough reasonable seedlings to prick out a third row there. That's 21 plants. That is probably enough for me. As usual, I will keep this tray, though these are in a bit of a mess because of course these tiny little ones that have only just germinated, they're all intermingled with the larger plants, and these have all had their roots thoroughly disturbed now. So some of these will not be happy with me. Others will probably be okay, and if I give that a drop of water in a minute, hopefully it will settle those down. I don't know if I need any more, but what I'll probably do in a week or two, when some of these little ones here have developed a bit, is prick out a fourth row, and that will be plenty. So the final thing I want to prick out is this celtus. So it's always nice trying new varieties, but I'm not often trying entirely new plants, and this year I've got two of them. I've got the lemongrass and this celtus. So this is some kind of stem lettuce. It's an oriental variant of the lettuce, grown, well, of course, for its leaves, but for its fleshy stem. I've wanted to try this for some time and I've not got round to it, but I've got some this year. Germination is okay, but these are coming up over quite a period. So again, you can see maybe some very small ones here, as well as some that are probably ready to prick out now. So I think I will also do a row or two of these, those that are ready, and leave some of the others to grow on a little bit longer. Really no idea about growing this. I'm just treating it like a normal lettuce, and we will see what happens. Let's have a little look, see what sort of root system these have. Oh, well, that's very nice. There's a reasonable amount of root there. Well worth moving these on, I think. Well, that's a nice little job on a miserable day in the greenhouse here out of the rain. So that is it for those seedlings. The celeriac and parsley I'll just leave on the bench here. I've popped the lemongrass back into the propagator. They really don't want to get too cold. I am plagued with equipment malfunctions lately. I've had microphones go wrong. They've been replaced. I've had the media mod on my GoPro replaced. Now I'm waiting for a replacement GoPro itself, and I'm on my SLR. And today, while I'm filming, the camera drops down because the tripod head has now broken. So everything is going wrong. I shall endeavour to replace this so that I can come back soon with a new video. But that is all for this one. Thanks ever so much for watching, and bye for now.